Welcome to the Drilling Millions podcast, presented by Sage Dental Partners.
Highlighting the costs associated with setting up a practice. Like I said previously, like a lot of people that listen to this podcast are in school still, or they're, associates. And sometimes there's this fog in front of, the costs associated, with dentistry. And one of the biggest probably in someone's career is either purchasing a practice or building it themselves. So from what you've seen, what does it cost to build like your average, couple thousand square foot practice?
I love these questions because I don't like to ever give answers that are fog. So I won't give an answer that is fog. I'll actually give like a true answer. For an average practice, I don't like breaking stuff down to square feet, but you can, because you can say, okay, an average bare bones practice realistically in Toronto is $200 a square foot to build, the building costs. And that can go from 200 to realistically to whatever. If you're going to choose the marble countertops, it can go up to 450. It can go up to a huge cost. But if you're saying to get in base level dental office, you can get in for 200. So if you think about that, I believe a 2,000 square foot dental office, that should be 400,000.
Okay, so you've sunk 400K in, and like you said, there's opposite ends of the spectrum, right? There's the dentist that wants a marble countertop, and then there's the ones that want plywood.
Yeah, they just want the material to get in. Yeah,
the most bare bones. Like when you look at the differences from the perspective of the contractor, do you think it's like worth it to splurge? Because I was having dinner with someone the other night, really successful dentist, and he said, the first practice, when you just get out of school, you're in a ton of debt, a boatload of debt. He had actually, interestingly enough, bought some of his equipment used from overseas, and he was able to put that in. He was just able to get enough money together to bring some associates in and some patients in. And as he started growing, he slowly renovated the office. That office became, I think ended up being 9 or 10 offices. So it did really, really well. But his thesis was, don't spend money at the early stages, or don't spend money when you're just opening up, like kind of get a proof of concept and then iterate. Versus I met with someone else who gave me the completely opposite advice. His advice was, we need Apple TVs in every room, because, that's going to set the patient experience. And that's, those are your biggest marketing tools, right? Like your patients are going to have friends that they're going to refer, and neighbors. And so from your perspective, what do you see is the right way to go about something like that?
So for like a new grad coming out of school, I agree. If you have a lot of debt, it kind of makes sense to, like, you want to hone your skills, you want to get like really good, you want to kind of gear yourself to what you're going to choose in your practice. Yeah, maybe if you're going to buy a practice, maybe buying an older practice, getting it to a workable level, and then building up a good clientele. And then you want to go into, let's say you want to go into implants down the road and you want to appeal to that kind of client. Yeah, you can change your office down the road. I think that's actually very sound, good advice. Like, if you're going to take over a practice which has good patient flow, yeah, prove a concept. That actually makes sense. I can't disagree with that. It makes sense.
So there's this I hate to admit this, but I watch HGTV sometimes, and there's this show that my cousin in Vancouver was on. It was Love It or List It. Are you familiar?
Yeah, I've seen that show.
Oh yeah, say it very embarrassingly, but yeah. So Love It or List It. So when you think of it in the dental space, like Love It or List It, is it more worthwhile to renovate an office, or is it better just to sell it and start fresh?
You mean build from scratch?
Yeah.
It's actually something I think about all the time. I think if I was a dentist, I think I would probably go into an older office and upgrade it.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because I think you can do it a lot quicker. You can bypass the permits. Not bypass the permits. If you make material changes in the office, you're gonna have to get a permit. But if you're just gonna be changing the layout and upgrading it, you really don't need a permit. So you can kind of go a lot quicker. It's cheaper, yeah. I think in the overall, like, if you're just looking to buy, buying an office like that and just upgrading it is probably the way to go. Probably economical, good decision.
Here's another layer to this question. Okay. Do you do because I've seen this happen a lot where, people do this to houses. Like they'll take a really old house, they'll put a new facade on, but then as soon as you look at the house on the side, you could still see the old house is still there. It just has a different facade. In a similar context in dentistry, is it worth, playing around with, okay, the sterilization, the sterilization is perfect. Place is not perfect, but, maybe we can just upgrade it and make a better use of space? Or do you think, if you're going to spend all that money, you may as well just gut the thing, stay in the same location, but gut the thing and build it new?
So you need an overall space that's going to work. Like for sure, if you think it's too small, then yeah, I agree. You have to upgrade, like you have to do something. But if an office's footprint is big and you like that office, you can, in many ways, I just think you can get there quicker by going into like a big office footprint where you can even change where the Steri Center is. You can make it perfect. You can design something perfect in that space. Yes, you will need to go through the permit process, but you kind of can just go. Like it's already there. The footprint's there. You know that there's patient flow there. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like people have been to that office. So I kind of see that if I was in that position, I would kind of maybe gear towards going down that road.
Well, so more so what I was getting at was, is it worth upgrading the office in piecemeal fashion? Like if you have 4 ops, maybe upgrading 2 ops in the Steri, center.
Oh no,
or is it worth just doing it all at
sorry,
once?
I misunderstood your question. No, I don't like the idea of doing it piecemeal. I think like that kind of looks weird. Like I've seen it done where like there's 2 upgraded ops and then like 2 15-year. It just doesn't work. Like it kind of doesn't, like how you're sort of saying like with the house and the facade. That's kind of how it appears in my mind. But I don't know. I'm not the average patient.
Yeah. Well, even from like the dentist perspective, in terms of like workflow, if some of your equipment is set up this way and other equipment in another room is set up another way, I feel like sometimes it's just better to start with a blank slate of paper and build it from there.
Yeah, like if I would just, even if you're in an older office, you can just take down everything to bare bones either way. But if you're what I was trying to get at is like if you're already in an existing spot that has had patients there before and you like the overall square footage, you can just design it any way you want. And I just think that's a quicker way and probably a more economical way to get in.
So at 400K, like say for your 200 square foot or 2000 square foot office at 200 a foot, what's the biggest, what is the biggest eater at that cost? Like, is it the equipment? Is it the floor? Like what eats away most of that budget?
So that 400K is a construction budget. So equipment would be on top of that. But basically, it's plumbing, electrical. Those are the huge portions. And then if you're spending more than 200, it can be a glass and the different types of tile that makes things expensive. But basically, it's the plumbing, electrical, HVAC. Really, those are like it's a big portion of the cost.
And I know like the equipment itself is not up your wheelhouse, but on average, is the equipment hundreds of thousands of dollars? Like, would you be saying it would be an extra 200K on top of that?
I wish I knew.
Yeah.
I think it's like $5,000 a chair. Oh no, that must be wrong now.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I won't make you quote a number because that's not
an extra couple $100,000. Yes, it's an extra maybe $100,000 to $150,000.
So I mean, if you're looking at 400, that's like 550. That's the only mental math I'll do on this podcast. Yeah. I'll add
400 and 150.
Yeah. So 500, 550. We'll get you a new office.
Yeah.
Interesting. And what are some of the horror stories that you had to go through when you were renovating the Genesis Center?
So I've done 2 big renovations like in the last. So the first renovation, which was kind of doing everything in the old way. The horror stories are like classic horror stories, like just someone didn't show up on time, we're delayed, relying on so many different people taking so many different types of measurements, like we're not getting the proper products on time, like the project's not moving along properly. And like it's really difficult on a big project to juggle all those different variables. So like things get left behind and you lose a lot of time. Really, you lose a lot of time. Building this new place, because we did it in 3D, we knew where everything was going to come from now. Like when I looked at the glass in 3D, I'm like, all right, like I know exactly how that's getting here. As before, I'm like, I'm relying on a subcontractor to get the glass here. Like, I hope it gets here. I have no clue where it is. Like, but now it's like, okay, like I know what it's going to look like when it comes. I know how it should look like when it's installed. So everybody's like more on the same page. So that's just the way. Really, it's just an efficiency thing. Really, it's just an efficiency thing.
When you have built out this technology, why stop at dentistry? Why not take it to like residential real estate, commercial real estate? Why stop it here?
I don't want to. I want to continue taking this forward, but as like what you said about like I want to prove a concept, and I think this is a great industry to prove that concept in. I think dentistry has so many different ways to value 3D architecture. It's a good place to start. It's a really, really good place to start and get really, really good at, because dental construction, I don't think it's difficult. I don't think any construction is super difficult, but I would say dental construction is more difficult than your average construction for sure. But once you figure out dental, like once we make it in dental, we can make it happen in residential. And like, yeah, I definitely have aspirations for that for sure.
Yeah, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere, right?
You can make it in dental, you can make it, if you make it in dental construction, yeah, like it has more plumbing aspects than a residential house. Like it just does. Like there's more to a dental office than there is to a home. So yeah, we're trying to build, there'll be a really, really good foundation from this dental office software that we've built.
So from like a science and pseudo law, like it's not law, like LSAT, like background, like how hard was it for you to pick up all these, concepts of plumbing and electrical and all the various things you need to know in order to execute?
It's actually a really good question. When I first started, I felt like so lost, like listening to explanations from like these plumbers. Like I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about. You're like this thing, and they're talking in millimeters and like to each other just verbally. I'm like, I can't, nothing. Like I don't know what's going on. And honestly, just like from seeing 3D architecture for the first time, like, okay, like if I can do it like this, I can understand it. I learned it all like that. Really, I did. I learned it from looking and being on site and understanding like, oh, I've seen this on the computer before. Like this now makes perfect sense to me. Like marrying the 3D part with actually seeing it in real life. Yeah, like that's what really allowed me to really, really understand it. I don't even think it's difficult. It's just so interesting. Like you just learn how certain plumbing works and how certain pipe works and how quickly you can get it done. It's very, very interesting.
But in many ways, you were the first client.
Yeah.
Of the
Definitely.
3D vision.
100%. Yeah. And I was the first, like I wanted to understand construction. I wanted to see it. And I never was able to understand it from 2D drawing. So 3D just made sense.
Yeah. Well, Woody, this has been an absolute pleasure. So great talking to you about Build Technologies and all the cool things you guys are doing. It's awesome.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.